American suburbs don't have to be dominated by cars. The American suburb is car-centric by design, but it doesn't have to be. There's a way to get rid of large parking lots and create dense walkable areas. A perfect example of this is Carmel, Indiana. Carmel, Indiana is a city located just north of Indianapolis, and has become known for its exceptional quality of life, booming economy, and impressive urban planning. And they've been integrating mixed-use developments as a way to both strengthen their walkability and increase fiscal stability. This focus on people is a shift in traditional suburb design mentality. It's one that acknowledges that it's important to include spaces for people and not just cars. To learn more about Carmel's development strategy and understand how a suburb can transform itself into a walkable city, I spoke with Jim Brainard, who's been the mayor of Carmel since 1996.
First of all, I think it's important to point out that we've been building cities for a long time in our civilization, thousands and thousands of years. But after we first got over 25% car ownership, and after World War II, we started to build our cities for cars, not people. And we neglected building places where people could come together, public places that created community pride, public parks, public squares, places for events to take place. And that's what Carmel did that many of our newer cities, mainly suburbs, suburbs are no different than any other city. There are new cities is where people have chosen to live. And we need to pay attention to how they're built and to make certain they're built with places where people can come together and get to know their neighbors.
One of the most essential ways a city or suburb can become more walkable and people-friendly is to reduce the amount of surface parking. Surface parking generally spreads out stores and commercial areas, making it significantly more difficult for people to walk to their destination. However, in suburbs, car infrastructure is already in place, which to some extent makes it difficult to reduce surface parking. However, according to Mayor Brainard, it's not an impossible task to accomplish, and has many benefits for cities and suburbs.
Well, why suburbs generally in the United States, and other places as well, Canada, places in Europe, aren't as attractive as the older cities that were built pre-car, is that we have to store the cars somewhere, and there's seas of parking lots. Nobody goes for a romantic walk past that. And so how do you do it differently? The problem in this part of the country in particular, outside just a few of the major cities in the United States, is that land is very inexpensive. We have lots of it. And so it's just easier to park those cars and cheaper to park them on the surface. It might be a few $1,000s a parking space to construct, where an underground garage can be upwards of $80,000 per space. And a structured garage, depending on whether it's precast concrete or built in place, is around $40,000 per space. So that's a much preferred solution. It doesn't make sense. On the other hand, property taxes are paid per square foot in the United States. So service parking lots don't pay very much because there's not much value there. So if we put the cars underground, which then allows you to build on the entire site, not just 10 or 15, 20% of it, and go up 5 stories, you can increase the revenue 50 or 60 times. So we have one example, Monon Square, which was just raised. It's going to be a new development. It was a single-story 1950s retail center. 85% of the site was parking. The city was receiving, prior to buying the property, $60,000 of property taxes a year from that site. When it's redeveloped, that will go up to roughly $3 million a year.
This shows how denser developments pay significantly more in property taxes compared to those with sprawling parking lots. However, as Mayor Brainard will explain, building parking garages is expensive. However, the value of dense developments is so significant that Carmel uses a TIF, or tax increment financing strategy, to help fund their construction.
So what we do is use a process called tax incremental finance, abbreviated as the acronym is TIF. We borrow against that anticipated increase in property taxes. Developer signs on the loan, the taxpayers don't, generally speaking, and that money is then used to put the cars underground and also for better architecture, and it makes the deal better. I don't like to abate taxes. That's simply a giveaway, and there's no value to that. It simply goes to the company's bottom line and distributed to the shareholders in greater profits. I like to see if there's an incentive. I want to see the taxpayers benefit through improvements to the city where they've chosen to live. So the TIF incentive, in my opinion, is far, far, far superior. And that's what we've done at Carmel. We've done this close to 60 times for various developments. One of the quid pro quos we insist on when we do that is better architecture, better street materials, all these little details that make the city more valuable to the people that live here.
TIF provides city governments with many opportunities to improve the city. It can be a viable option for increasing density and building mixed-use developments. But additionally, it can also be used as an incentive to ensure developers are building structures with quality materials and with good architecture.
They're getting a big benefit from the TIF. We make a list of things we want, and they make a list of things they want. It's a negotiation. Each TIF project has its own development deal, and you can't really, it comes under free speech and the Constitution control how somebody builds a building. It's an expression. But when you're giving huge incentives, you can say we have the right to approve architecture as a condition of the incentive. And so we have an architectural committee at our redevelopment commission that approves all the redevelopment deals. They hire professional architects and artists to review the plans, and we ask for really good architecture. And we send the businesses back. We want to see something better than this. And our architect will make suggestions, keeping in mind that they have a budget to meet, but we negotiate hard on behalf of taxpayers to make certain that we get as beautiful of buildings as possible.
TIF is an effective way that suburbs can build both more visually appealing buildings while also combating sprawl. Sprawl is extremely expensive for suburbs and can have very negative impacts on a budget's bottom line. So it's in cities' best interest to decrease sprawl, which can end up saving millions of dollars.
Every few miles you go farther out in the country, you need a new fire station. To build a fire station, equip it, several $1 million. But then you have to staff it every year with 3 shifts of firefighters plus people to handle vacations and sick days and so on. It's about $4 million a year per station to staff one. And then you have to provide police in a new area, and you have to build roads to carry the traffic. A 2-lane road costs $10 to $12 million from scratch today in the Midwest. So if we're building in an area that already has the roads, the water lines, the electric lines, the police, and the fire serving the area, while we get maybe 50, 60 times more revenue in one of our TIF projects, we then don't have to increase operating expenses very much. And that's absolutely key as well. Sprawl is terribly expensive for cities, and a lot of sprawling suburban cities, when their growth phase is over, are going to have severe financial problems. Some of them already have been experiencing that.
This money that's saved in sprawl can now be invested into other projects, like improving education, investing in parks and public spaces, and ensuring infrastructure is in good condition. When you see a suburb struggling to fund schools or roads, there's a very possible chance it could be traced back to expensive sprawl, and a lack of space to build new homes to fund that sprawl. However, by investing this money back into the city in the form of public spaces and amenities, it can help attract corporations and workplaces that bring both people and capital into the area.
Cities are either on an upward spiral or a downward spiral. There's no in between. And constantly being rebuilt, and you constantly have to be investing in cities for them to work properly. We've taken a lot of risk and chosen to invest heavily in the infrastructure of our city. And by infrastructure, not just roads and bridges, but parks and trails and sidewalks and art facilities, public plazas. And those are what have created value in our city and attracted more and more people here. And so, how do you get the best and brightest person graduating from a great university to decide to live in central Indiana versus Denver or Miami or Boston or San Francisco or anywhere else, Europe? And we do that and we're flat. We have no mountains, we have no oceans. I joke, we're just like Paris. They have lousy weather and no mountains and oceans either, and they did just fine. But so investing in our city or making a beautiful place where it's easy and safe to get around, where low crime rates, all these things are critically important to being able to attract corporations, because those corporations can't attract the C-suite people they want. They won't expand here, and they may move somewhere else where it's easier to recruit the workers they need.
As Carmel continued to develop, they had a vision of developing a new downtown in the place of old strip malls and parking lots. And throughout this master plan, Carmel focused on the arts, developing spaces for art to flourish, and making public art an aspect of these newly created public spaces.
Carmel's 50 square miles. That's double the size of the island of Manhattan. The old little town that was here at the end of World War II was 700 people, and it was a mile square, and it wasn't big enough to hold a downtown for 50 square miles of people. So we went farther south and bought almost 90 acres and master planned a new downtown there, and then Midtown connects the original village area, which we now call the Art and Design District. It's all connected. But that art and design district, we wanted to invest in that older area. It's historic, it's important, it's the heart of the city, while still building this new downtown. So we turned the old part of the town into the art and design district, put up a lot of public art, fun public art, and built the Indiana Design Center with some 80 art related businesses in it. We now have well over 100 art and design related business in that original downtown area in Carmel. That's worked out extremely well. And with all that activity comes some really good restaurants and things that we didn't have 30 years ago and that people really wanted. So that's the formula to do that. You create a lot of activity, niche marketing in essence. And then we did the city center with big performing arts facilities, really planned the center of our new city.
Completing mixed-use projects that incorporate the arts, as Carmel has done, certainly holds many benefits for a suburb. But that begs the question, why don't more suburbs do it? A big reason for that could be that developers and lenders are nervous to take on these mixed-use deals in suburbs. And this was an issue for Carmel as they look to start developing mixed-use projects in different areas of the city.
I get the developers excited about it as long as they can make money. I said, the city's behind this. We'll make sure it works for you, but we need you to invest. And they agree to do it. They come back in a few weeks and say, well, I just can't do it. When I finally figured out what was going on, the bankers were saying no, because it was risky and different. Cutting down a bunch of trees, throwing up some houses, and putting a retail strip center in front of it. That was tried and true and easy, even though it was terrible for the city. My opinion, it wasn't. We needed our new cities needed to have a real traditional downtown. People wanted that, but the bankers were saying no, too risky. So I started holding meetings with the bankers and the developers, and brought the bankers in and went through how TIF works and how the city was going to stand behind these projects to make sure they succeeded. And that's what the bankers needed to hear. Now there's lines outside my door, people trying to do deals. There's not enough land. But it was very hard going in the beginning.
Getting mixed-use deals done is one of many crucial steps to revitalizing a suburb. Making suburbs people-friendly has many factors, but one very important factor is walkability. Without being able to walk to public areas, stores, and restaurants, a city loses its character. Carmel has focused on walkability, ensuring people are able to reach these new public spaces, not only by car, but also by foot.
Nobody likes to go for walks past big sprawling parking lots. They don't feel safe and secure. We know that we bring buildings up to the street for cars, parallel parking. People feel safe in that sidewalk space. Having it too open, people There's all sorts of academic studies on this. Don't feel good about the space they're in. Beautiful architecture. I had this theory that back to architecture got ugly about the time we all got in cars in the late 1940s and quit walking around our cities. And so having beautiful things to look at, sculpture, flowers on the street, all these things help encourage people to walk, which is also much better for the environment, better for public health. We know from Dick Jackson's book, Urban Sprawling Public Health, that obesity rates go down by over 35%, walking just 10 minutes to and from work every day. And overweight rates, another category, not obesity, but overweight rates, go down by a similar amount walking to and from work 10 minutes every day. So creating communities, mixed use is tremendously important. So many people live in sprawling subdivisions. You can go outside for a walk, go walk your dog, but you can't walk anywhere you need to go. It's just a recreational walk. So mixed use development allows us to build places where people live and work, and they can do most of their errands by going out the door and walking a couple blocks. That's important. In downtown Carmel, you can walk to a couple different grocery stores. You can walk to dozens of restaurants. You can walk to dry cleaners. You can walk to boutiques, the neighborhood pubs. Anywhere you want to walk, you're able to do that. It took us a while to get there. But that's really important. You want to walk out and get an ice cream in the evening, there's half a dozen places to do that. You don't have to get in your car to do it. So you work off those ice cream calories on the way back.
Investing in public spaces has numerous benefits for suburbs. It's a win-win scenario. People get to have spaces they can enjoy, being able to walk to stores and restaurants, and having great green space and trails. And the city gets to have dense developments that pay significantly more in taxes, allowing them to run a fiscally sustainable government. However, achieving this certainly takes significant effort and some risk. There's an opportunity for other suburbs to change their landscape, from one of strip malls and parking lots to one of public spaces and mixed-use areas. Next time you're in a suburb, think about the amount of space that's consumed with these strip centers and parking lots. And know that it's not too late for that to transform into a more enjoyable space. Carmel is living proof that with the right mindset, suburbs can turn themselves into dynamic, walkable, and enjoyable cities.